Good morning, everyone. I'm Katie Binks, and I'm joined by my colleague here, Jackie Lowes. We are the Volunteering and Community Partners Senior Manager and Assistant Manager. Within our role, we work closely in the Durham County area and a little bit wider with our local community volunteer networks, area action partnerships, community foundations, local authority volunteering, employee support volunteering networks. And we've each worked in the industry for the past 2 decades in some form or another. And we're thrilled to be here today just to share with you some of our experiences in the big, wonderful world of volunteering. During today's workshop, we intend to start with a little overview of who we are, what we do, why we're here, and how volunteering operates at Durham University before plunging into the key themes of recruiting volunteers, the diversifying volunteering roles, and exploring potential challenges.
Okay, morning everybody. Nice to see you all here. I'm just going to delve a little bit into what Durham University Volunteering Outreach are, who we are and what we do. So within our volunteering programme, our volunteers come from a number of different areas, as Katie's mentioned. Our centrally based student-led programme brings together volunteers from our student society. All of our projects are overseen by Student Executive Committee and our project leaders, who are all volunteer in those roles as volunteers as well. Our projects always stem from identified community need, and we work alongside currently over 200 community partners in delivering those projects to make sure that the projects are always impactful within our local area. From a heritage point of view, a few examples include working closely with the Auckland project, Durham Cathedral, and we've also been involved fairly recently in some historical archiving projects. As a collegiate university, we also have an active programme of college volunteering, with many of our colleges having their own outreach officers, and they have specific projects within their colleges for their own students. For example, Van Mildert College have their Mildert for Refugees project, which has been running for a number of years, and that's where volunteers support displaced communities in Durham. A couple of other colleges run intergenerational projects for our older community members. From a staff point of view, we can access up to 35 hours volunteering time per year, which can be used across team challenges, regular community partner collaborations, such as supporting our local food banks, and also for individual volunteering, things like school governors are always quite popular from that point of view. As a founding partner of the local employee supported volunteering network, we believe we have one of the most generous staff volunteering offers in the northeast of England. We also have a sport and physical activity arm within the Team Durham Community, and that sees our volunteers supporting and delivering activities such as after school junior sports clubs, sports camps during the holidays, and wellbeing sessions for hard to reach adults within our community. On top of the student volunteers, we also have around 65 volunteers from our local community who are aged 14 plus, who come in to support us with our holiday camps, gain some experience, give us a lot of volunteering time during their school holidays, and really helps our projects to work. Gives them some experience and skill development while we go along. Many of our university departments are also actively involved in community outreach and volunteering, and we use their expertise to deliver specific projects such as science outreach and engineering projects. Recently, Modern Languages worked with teams of school children in partnership with the Auckland project on a Spanish ambassadors project, which helped them to develop sales pitches to promote the heritage site. And finally, working in collaboration with the Durham Students' Union, we support volunteering in several other societies, such as Scouts and Guides, which is one of their big societies, and their volunteers contribute a huge amount to the local community. In the last 3 years, we've had 4,758 volunteers involved in the programme, amassing a fantastic 92,500 volunteer hours.
And that's just what they record. We all know that volunteers hate recording what they're doing. So why does the university see this as a valuable resource? And why does it matter to you, our lovely audience today? We thought that we are possibly representing the type of organisation that you would go to recruit some of your volunteers from. And therefore, understanding our motivations will inspire the carrots that you develop to help your recruitment drives. For the university, volunteering is viewed as a great aspect of corporate social responsibility. It can be a great way to build relationships between the university and the community and support widening participation agenda as well. Another priority for the university is the provision of enrichment activities for our students. It's a great priority for the university to make sure that our students are challenged and that they are developing skills and ultimately making our students more employable and developing their CVs, which ends up reflecting really well on the university. But we're also interested in the wellbeing aspects that it provides volunteering. And when we have a team or a department engaging in volunteering, the level of cohesion and team building opportunities that occur. For our volunteers, however, the motivation is very, very different. It usually boils down to that feel-good factor, the social elements, sometimes the certificates, the awards, and the references that's provided through it as well. We're going to come on to the how later. We'll get to that shortly. No spoilers just yet. Through today's presentation, we really wanted to allow everybody to have a little input. We have our experiences and knowledge. We've got a wonderful group of people here from very diverse backgrounds, so it would be a shame not to pool all of that knowledge and experience together and be able to present that back. Therefore,
Okay, thanks, Katie. So for the next part of the workshop, we would like to make this a little bit more interactive, and we'd like you to go into it. You'll be put into breakout rooms, and we'd like you to discuss these two recruitment questions. Where do you recruit your volunteers from, and what is the demographic of your volunteer group? You're only going to have 5 minutes because we've got a lot to get through today. So if you can briefly introduce yourself and then jump straight into the discussion, please. Please appoint a spokesperson within your group so that that person can then summarise and feedback briefly after your time is up.
I hope that I'm really hoping that you found the conversations rich and insightful. And now we would really like to hear back from you, and I really hope you've nominated someone from your group. So, group one, can you turn on your microphone, the designated speaker, and just give us a little overview of your findings?
I can't remember which number the group is, but I'm happy to feedback from my group.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah. So within our group, we discussed about that most people volunteering are actually coming from the very local, hyper-local area, so their borough or a very local area. So that often has a big impact on what the demographics of the volunteering are. We found some barriers, particularly with some of the organisations that were in more rural areas. Certainly, transport barriers were causing an issue. You know, for example, few buses, or very difficult to get there unless you actually drive. So that was definitely some of the barriers that some organisations were facing. And we were also discussing about expenses and saying that many organisations just limit to a very localised area for their expenses, rather than giving full expenses for if people are coming from a long distance, and then it's up to the individual volunteer whether they choose to take that particular volunteering placement.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Alex. Can I have a volunteer from another group if that was group one? Let's try group two, or if you're not sure which group you are, just anyone who was nominated. First come, first served.
We were actually group one. Sorry, we didn't speak up before that.
Thank you, Joanna.
So we talked a lot about both digital means and word of mouth being really important, and so utilizing our own websites and social medias, linking up to volunteer centres, TSIs, and things like that. But the importance of like a good picture and a good poster that can go up in the local area, utilizing local Facebook groups and interacting with both like place community groups and also communities of people that we might want to interact with. We didn't talk much about the demographic, but a little bit about like retired people were mentioned, and young people as well, and kind of linked into flexibility of roles having an impact on who the demographic is.
Brilliant, thank you. And next speaker, please, if similar findings or anything to add or anything to counter on that.
I can go. I think I was group 5.
Amelia.
Hi. So yeah, it was kind of similar. Word of mouth was a big thing for us as well. And one of the organisations in our group was a membership organisation. So you've already got a kind of interested group of people, but then that can lead to the kind of volunteering with the heritage is seen as like a bonus of membership, but that can lead to difficulty with diversifying. A lot of us were saying we largely work with retired people. Certain subjects like we had cricket and churches and engineering, so a lot of the demographics are kind of older white men, and that can lead to kind of problems with diversity. But obviously you've got a kind of really interested audience there. And then others was kind of knocking on doors near sites and using kind of local Facebook groups and things like that. So that was largely our conversation.
Thank you. And we should have 2 groups left. So can I have someone from one of the 2 remaining groups, please?
I'm happy to feed in what we were talking about.
Thank you, Gemma.
I think it was group 3, but I'm really not sure. Sorry.
That's okay.
I do know that we were hearing from the Shakespeare Trust. Frankie had some really interesting things to say about engaging with students, and what they found to be quite a positive experience. Because we were talking about demographic. I think we'd all started off by saying, yes, it's mainly older people, mainly retirees. Would be great to get some more diversity in there. And Frankie was reflecting that actually they've had a good experience bringing in students. Sometimes they're a bit time limited, but they seem to be doing a good job at refreshing that pool all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's something that you're willing to do, it does sound like it's got potential.
Brilliant. Thank you, Gemma. And the final group, if there's somebody available from the final group, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about like how we recruit. Sorry, I'll turn my video off. I'll turn my video off because it seems to be causing issues with my bandwidth. We talked a bit about recruitment. One other team talked about even advertising in the newspaper, which is something a little bit different. And our demographics were a range. Again, we had a lot of retirees, but also students, due to like the different types of sites that we are as well.
Okay, thank you everyone for feeding back. Just to briefly summarise where we are there. Certainly a theme of a lot of very local or hyper-local volunteers that we talked about coming through. A lot of discussion about the demographics in terms of potentially mainly retirees that are involved there, but good to hear that there's some students coming through as well and some younger people coming through within those groups. Certainly the rural issues and the transport is relevant for us up here as well. So I think interesting to see that one's come out, and this lots of different methods of local promotion as well. So good to get some ideas from there. Thank you.
So we thought that we might take a moment to explore avenues where we've accessed volunteer gold mines, so to speak. I mentioned earlier about employer-supported volunteering schemes. For those of you who've not had experience of working with ASVs, it's becoming an increasingly popular trend within organisations and charities as corporate social responsibility becomes more prevalent. Large organisations such as Amazon, Nissan, EE, and even some local authorities have an employer-supported volunteering scheme, and it can range between 1 and 5 days that a staff can use in their year in work time to give to organisations. And it also ranges as to whether an organisation will enable a staff member to use this independently or whether it's organised as a group. However, we've found it can be very, very useful. It might be that we have staff volunteers as trustees of an organisation or friends of an organisation, or just, your regular volunteer on a weekly basis. It seems to vary. But it means that engaging with the employer-supported volunteering network means that you start to engage a demographic of volunteer that's otherwise quite sparse. We know that people's working more hours than what they have previously. We know that families and parents are working from quite sort of long hours from the mid-20s until the mid-60s at least. So we know that in terms of reaching volunteers within those age groups is becoming increasingly hard. So this is a really great way in which you can do that. But also it's enabling forward thinking for future volunteer recruitment of those heading towards retirement as well. If you can catch them whilst you're still working and enable them to use employer supported volunteering to volunteer with your organisation, they're more likely to continue with your organisation in increased hours following their retirement. County volunteering organisations, so a lot of counties and boroughs will have their own volunteering organisations where the standard Joe Blogs will go if they want to know what volunteering opportunities are available to them. More often than not, they have some sort of volunteer platform where you will be enabled to promote your volunteering activities. So we found that quite useful historically. Duke of Edinburgh remains a popular scheme with which runs throughout the UK. An element of your Duke of Edinburgh award is your volunteering hours, and those delivering the programme are often looking for outlets to signpost their participants to. So if you're an organisation and you have the capacity to do that, linking to these organisations can be quite useful. And again, it's just a case of getting them through. If they come through the door to achieve their Duke of Edinburgh hours, they're more than likely going to stay following achieving those hours because they've got the bug of volunteering for you. Many FE and HE institutions like ourselves have dedicated staff promoting volunteering, and they're looking for opportunities for placements, internships. Some degree programmes link quite nicely with volunteering as well, for example. So theology is often linked to Durham Cathedral with their students. Archaeology works very closely with Auckland Project with them around the grounds, and we've also had history students engage with our archiving opportunities within museums. Even geography's linked opportunities within the Heritage Centre grounds and biodiversity as well. I realise each of these demographics of volunteers come with their own challenges, which we will touch on very, very shortly. But I find that through diversifying the demographic of the volunteers, they begin to complement each other. Again, we'll come on to it in a little bit. I'm wondering, because of time, whether we were about to go into another breakout room, but whether we ask you to look at both of these topics within your breakout room so that we've got time to cover everything that we really wanted to cover today. So the key things that we ask in here are, what are the different roles that you recruit for? And does the onboarding process vary between those roles? And then what challenges have you faced when working with volunteers, and what creative solutions you have applied to these? So again, we'd love to hear what your experiences are in these places, and what solutions you've found, and let's have a rich conversation where everyone can bring something to the table. Again, we've only got 5 minutes. So Katerina, if you could send everyone back into the breakout room, please. And we look forward to hearing back from you. And then, Jackie will kindly summarise and we'll give you our thoughts on the topics as well.
Hi everyone, thank you for coming back. If we can just do a quick summary around the groups, please, as we did last time. Group 1, would you like to feedback briefly on the discussions that you've had within your group? Anybody? Would anybody else like to go?
Hi, I'm not quite sure again which
That's all right, Alex, just go for it. Thank you.
Yeah, nominated to speak out, but we've got quite a few different roles across the group in the chat today, and with the onboarding, found that some of the making it more efficient would be to have it every like say three times a year or 4 times a year rather than continually onboarding. Another things we discussed was about DBS, only DBS if there's a particular safeguarding issue for that particular role. Like for example, Home Library Service Deliverer, or the armories were saying that if working with the arms and armour, so working with that part of the collection, but being very specific with when you actually are doing the DBS. So I think that trying to actually onboard slightly differently for different roles can actually be more effective as well. So not always like a one size fits everything, like a solution. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thanks, Alex. Can we have group 2? Would somebody like to feedback, please?
I will do my best to feedback for our group. It's very short. It's very hard in such a short space of time when we're from such very, very different backgrounds, setups. So we kind of have different challenges, but overall I would say the challenge is finding the right role for different people, and sometimes that's not possible if you've got one particular sort of site and you've just got the one type of role. It's quite hard to attract a diverse range of people to match that role. And sometimes you have different roles, but if you're attracting people sort of on the Duke of Edinburgh, then they're only there for a short time, and then it's just that ongoing having the capacity to keep doing it is quite difficult. So those were the sort of the challenges, is having the roles for the right people and having the capacity to manage them. We didn't really get much beyond that, unless anyone wants to chip in extra on that, but that's a quick summary for you.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to chip in and feedback from their group?
I'm happy to go again for group 3. Sorry, I'm losing my voice today. We were talking quite a bit about event volunteering, and the creation of different roles as a response to challenges that we've had with recruitment. So thinking about actually what people are interested in and what might work well, and then constructing new roles around that. We're talking about different ways we'd use volunteers for exhibitions. There's a bit of beekeeping going on, which just made me laugh. I just quite fancy that, to be honest. Gardening, people doing more sort of curatorial or records-based role. Talking about onboarding, we were saying it was roughly the same process for actually getting people in, but then there might be a different focus as to the job practices once you've got them through the door. So the induction part would obviously be more focused. And trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, in terms of challenges, we were talking about the importance of good communication, which I thought was really, really interesting, and I think is something that's totally worth bearing in mind, particularly where you've got volunteers that have been around for a long time, who've maybe been seeing quite a lot of changes, and just the importance of speaking to people face to face as often as you can.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Do we have anything different from the other 2 groups that were remaining? Or have you got similar challenges? Would anybody else like to feedback in?
From group 4, it's just very similar things really, but yeah, we were just saying, like, in terms of all the different roles, whether it's gardening, admin, research, to activities in the museum, end of the day it's also thinking about we kind of all have the similar process of training and onboarding is all the same until that maybe our last step essentially. And that's how, some challenges could be like thinking accessibility and kind of catering to each volunteer as well.
Yeah, that's great. And the final group, have you got anything else that you would like to add, or is everything very similar?
Yes, I also brought my cat just in time for yeah, we were talking, there's some definitely similar challenges. One of the things that was spoken about by a couple of different people in our group was from volunteer kind of run organisations, or organisations that rely heavily on volunteers. Some of the onboarding and the kind of roles have been done by volunteers for such a long time that it can be difficult for new volunteers coming in, or for the kind of staff to manage if the volunteers have their own ideas of what they want to do, and that differs maybe from what the staff are thinking. One of the things that was mentioned is having like a respected and like kind of established volunteer doing a bit of a review and coming up with recommendations, because that bridges that sort of gap between volunteers and staff, and it comes from the volunteer team, so the other volunteers are more likely to get on board with it. In terms of some of the other ways that we onboard, a lot of us had kind of a standardized kind of onboarding thing, but then it once that had been completed, it then diversified by roles. So you have like different training or things for different people, and getting to know people or getting to know the volunteers to see what would suit them. So that was one of the other things that we spoke about. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Amelia.
So we've just gathered some of the key challenges that we've witnessed in the area, and we thought it might be useful just to kind of go through some of the ways in which we've tried to tackle them, and the tools that we have applied and where we've applied them. We've found that at different stages of life, and there's always exceptions to the rule, but at different stages of life, the motivator for the volunteer is different. So generally with younger people, the sort of the social aspect, the fun aspect, the responsibility can be the motivator. And then as you get older, that career opportunity, greater skill development, portfolio building becomes more of the motivator. And then I think as well, you kind of reach a point where you have, for me personally, you have less time, and you only really agree to volunteer when you know that they really need your help and that you can make a difference, and you've got a tiny bit of time to give. And then I suppose it goes full circle of, as people go into the retirement, that sort of belonging, being part of something greater, being part of that family of volunteers. And I think it's important to try and make sure that your recruitment style speaks to the audience that you're wanting to attract for your volunteering. So, and if you're appealing to a broad audience, trying to capture all areas as much as possible. And that kind of flows into the retention of once you've recruited your volunteers. We know that retention is difficult, but if you understand what's motivated them to join, then making sure that they are getting what they've signed up for. So if it's people who want that skill development and that responsibility, that they're getting that, there are progression routes. If it's more the sort of the certificate and the training that's happening, or the feedback. If, you know, where I'm at the moment, I just want to make a difference and give something back. So sharing those stories of what the impact has been, letting them know that their time is making a difference, and that this is meaningful, and this is the difference that they make into your organisation. And then also in the promotion of your volunteer recruitment, we try and we know what the barriers are, and we try and reduce those barriers on there. So if you are able to cover travel expenses, all travel expenses are covered. If there's no skill requirement, or if there is skill requirement, making it clear on there. We know that some people are very sort of nervous to get started with volunteering. It can be a confidence thing, and having that that one-off opportunity, those taster sessions, can increase the confidence there, and give them that initial step through the door that'll enable them to volunteer. We know that some volunteers are completely scared of commitment. You know, I don't know the duration of this volunteering opportunity. I might start volunteering and never be able to leave. So being able to block volunteering of, you know, a minimum, we would like you to volunteer for a minimum of 6 months. It kind of gives them a get out clause if they're not comfortable, or if they're nervous about starting, as to, well, there is an end goal. More often than not, when they reach that end goal, they then continue anyway. So it's just that initial sort of getting them through the door. Me and Jackie work with student volunteers, so we know that, you know, working with student volunteers, that they have large periods of the year when they're just not here, a little bit more challenging on time commitments. and not quite as reliable as some of our other volunteering groups that we work with. However, they bring a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of energy, a lot of motivation, a lot of ideas and creativity. And therefore, having that mixture of volunteers between staff volunteers and student volunteers, old and young, a broad demographic of volunteers as well, can really enable them to complement one another, and the strengths and the weaknesses seem to marry up in harmony. I think a few of you mentioned about being quite creative about your volunteering roles, enabling micro and remote volunteering opportunities, using volunteers for skill-specific things, website development, social media. Again, that goes back to enabling them to do remote volunteering as well, particularly if you have the need for volunteers, but you live in a rural area and travel becomes difficult. And what we found is having, particularly with our students, of having ambassador roles or champion roles or volunteer leadership roles, so that people can be identified to be that champion amongst their peers to recruit volunteers. Sometimes volunteers will listen to their peers more than what they'll listen to the organisation, and that enables that sort of family team environment as well. And yeah, where you can link subject specific as well. People are volunteering to meet their passion. So if a particular opportunity lends itself more to a theme or a subject, utilize that. I'm sorry if I've rushed through that a little bit, but I wanted to enable a couple of minutes for questions, and we've got some nice conversations going on in the chat there as well, which is wonderful to see. Katerina's been keeping an eye on that, so I'll let Katerina just pick up any that she wants us to address and converse on.
More than questions, you've had a lot of comments, which is great, when people, when participants were talking about what they discussed. So some of the comments here, at Cheshire Archives, we had a lot of students specifically want to volunteer over the summer month whilst we were back home from university. So short-term projects can work well then. Someone says the flip side of them volunteering in term time near the universities. That's from Amelia.
Yeah, if you can marry them 2 points together and go local students out of term time and incoming students in term time. But again, it goes back to sort of doing blocks, and I know that puts strain on onboarding processes as well. It's having the capacity.
And Amelia said that something else that they forgot to say from the group that they had discussed was one organization having some online boarding before then meeting in person, which they thought could help with staff capacity, etc. And then Jenny Youngman say we have corporates in to help put up and take down Halloween and Christmas decorations at one of our sites. It's seen as it's seen as a Christmas street by staff at places like EE because it's so much fun, and it helps them loads. So yeah, I don't think we have any questions. We have 2 more new comments. Roy says, what is the best time of the year to engage with university students?
I would probably say if you're going to work with the organisation, you want to get them before term time starts so that everything can be put in place. So if you can reach them over the summer when it's a little bit quieter for the staff members so that they can do all of the onboarding process with you, and then you can start recruiting volunteers with them from their Freshers' Fair, which is usually September time. Durham's a little bit later. We have ours in October. The other great time to kind of reach out is December, January, when everyone's in the university is just catching the breath and has a little bit time to think about it again and do another drive, another push. Get things lined up for National Student Volunteering Week, which is February.
And you have time for another question. This one is, at the start, there was a mention of having 14-year-olds volunteering. How does this work in terms of safeguarding and health and safety? sorry, we had some teenagers who are keen to volunteer with us, but our board of trustees are very, very reluctant due to concerns around safeguarding, etc.
You want to pick that one up, Jackie?
I can do, yes. So we have we only take the younger volunteers within our holiday sports camps programme, and that is very structured. Our safeguarding is very tight on that, as you'd imagine, because we've got children coming in from the local community. Myself and Katie oversee all of the safeguarding as designated safeguarding leads. All of our coaches are also trained in safeguarding children, and because our volunteers are obviously under 18, they come into that bracket as well. So it's very structured, and we allocate volunteers to groups within the children, so we know who's with which group at any time. We don't deal directly with the volunteers. Any communication that we have is through parents. So we would always email the parents and contact them, so we don't have direct communication routes. So we manage out the safeguarding, any safeguarding risks, and have risk assessments and everything in place to make sure that our volunteers are safe at all times. And because we're here and we're dealing with them on a daily basis, we get to know them quite well, and we know that they know where to come if there's any issues. We have a staff team that are here to keep an eye on things, but it's something, because we're very tight on safeguarding with the children anyway, that it's never been a problem with us. But we make sure that we have that process in place for the communication side of it as well.
It's a robust risk assessment. I have got a closing thought. I would like to thank everyone for the very healthy discussions and ideas sharing and input. It's made the session really enjoyable, and I'd like to thank Katerina as well, the lovely Katerina, because you've been a wonderful co-host to work with there. Thank you very much.